Journey IFC strives to create safe spaces to worship God. Know that you are welcome just as you are, regardless of religious background or lack thereof, skin color, political affiliation, sexuality, age, culture, or any other label you own or society throws on you. You are welcomed and celebrated here just as you are.
Hey Journeyers, it's Jacob here. I was not here this Sunday, but we had some camera problems, and so we re-recorded this. So if you were here on Sunday, know that this one will be a little bit different. Susan came back in, we re-recorded. But we are so grateful for Susan, and I want to say thank you to her for being willing to step in and share her knowledge on the Enneagram 4. And I'm going to share our reading today, which comes from Genesis 37, verses 2 through 11. Joseph, being 16 years old, was shepherding the flock with his brothers, and Joseph brought a bad report of them to their father. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any other of his children, because he was a son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peaceably to him. Once Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream that I dreamed. There we were, binding sheaves in the field. Suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright. Then your sheaves gathered around it and bowed down to my sheaf." His brother said to him, "Are you indeed to reign over us? Are you indeed to have dominion over us?" So they hated him even more because of his dreams and his words. He had another dream and told it to his brothers, saying, "Look, I have had another dream. The sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me." When he told it to his father and to his brothers, his father rebuked him and said to him, "What kind of dream is this that you have had? Shall we indeed come, and I and your mother and your brothers, and bow to the ground before you?" So his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind.
Hi all. First thing I want to do is thank Jacob for inviting me to present this. The Enneagram is one of my favorite things, and I really think that it is a wonderful thing to know about yourself so that you can understand why you do the things you do. I have heard from people that they're having a little bit of trouble figuring out what their type is, and I thought if I went into the stances, it might help you a little bit, because then you can narrow it down from 9 to 3. So the aggressive stance people are people who are happy to be in charge, and they put their own agenda first. They are the 3s, the 7s, and the 8s. The second one is the dependent stance. These are 1s, 2s, and 6s. They are people that are very concerned about other people's expectations, and they are loyal and dependable. They can be seen moving towards others. The third one is the withdrawing stance with 4s, 5s, and 9s. So we've already talked about 9s, and today we're going to talk about 4s. Those people are in the withdrawing stance. They are people who are slow to act, and they are often shy and introverted, and they can be seen moving away from other people. You can think of it in the classic fight, flight, or flee triad. There are types of behaviors that people tend to do. So think about yourself and think about, how do I react when I'm in a stressful situation? Do I like to withdraw from it? Do I become aggressive? Or do I become dependent on the other people in the relationship? And if you can pick one of those, then maybe you can narrow it down to 3 numbers. So the other thing I wanted to go back to and remind you of is that when we talk about the behaviors of these different types, it's not really based on behaviors, it's based on basic motivations. Some of these numbers have similar behaviors, but they do it for different reasons. For example, I'm a 9 and I'm a people pleaser. It took me a long time to figure out whether I was a 9 or a 2, because 2s also exhibit people-pleasing behaviors. And when I finally read about the basic motivations of 2s and 9s people please because they want peace. And to keep the peace, they will often just ignore their own feelings and their own needs and wants to go along with everybody else. So that's people pleasing. 2s, on the other hand, will often go along with other people and are happy to do what other people want to do because that's how they get love, is they serve other people. They want to serve people. So it's a totally different motivation. So you have to think about not just what am I doing, but why am I doing it? So let's switch over now to the 4s. So 4s are called the individualists, the dreamer, or the romantic. They are located in the heart triad with 2s, 3s, and 4s. Remember when we talked about the gut triad, they were focused on anger and how they handle anger. In the heart triad, they focus on how do they handle shame and how do they handle feelings. 4s over-identify with feelings. Their basic motivation is that somewhere deep inside of them, they are fundamentally flawed. They feel like everybody else has got it all figured out, and they don't. It's a classic example of comparing my insides to everybody else's outsides. So they fear being ordinary. They have lots and lots of feelings, and they identify with those feelings. Very often our creatives are 4s, people who are songwriters, people who are poets, authors, painters. They just want to make the world beautiful. And in the process, they feel like they become more unique. And remember, they do not want to be seen as ordinary. Margaret came up with another song that came from the Fantastics. And the first line is, "Please don't let me be normal." That's a 4. Let's see what else. Their basic flaw is envy. This can lead to them being self-centered. They cling to feelings. Russo and Hudson says that usually 4s are more attuned to their emotional reactions than to the experience. Their emotional reactions to the experience than the actual experience itself. I had a question about that, and I said that imagine that you were at the Grand Canyon and there's lots going on, there's lots of tourists, there's people you came with, there's the park ranger who is doing the explanation of how the canyon was formed and all that. A 4 is going to come away from that remembering mostly the awe that they felt when they were at the canyon. Other people may remember the people they were with, and other types are going to remember different things, but 4s are going to focus on the feeling of awe. Let's see. Ian Cron said that Pinocchio was a 4 because Pinocchio knew there was something fundamentally wrong with him. He wasn't human. So he spent the rest of the story trying to figure out how to become human. 4s tend to dwell on the past. And this can sometimes become a problem for them because they don't think about the present. They need to focus on being more in the present than thinking about the past. I want to reiterate that their basic flaw is envy. Ian Cron also gave an example of how envy hit him one time. And he's a pretty evolved 4 by now. I mean, he's written lots of books and he has a podcast and all kinds of courses about the Enneagram, and still his basic flaw will crawl its way out and hit him. He said he was at an Episcopal church and he was sitting at the front. It was a nice Easter morning, and he looked out into the community that was gathered there, and he saw this father and son there. And they were dressed in matching seersucker suits. And they were so cute, and envy hit him like a hammer because he'd never had such an experience with his father. And he felt like, clearly there's something wrong with me that I never had that experience. Luckily for him, he knows the Enneagram, he knows himself, he knows his basic type, and he could pull himself off the precipice of envy instead of falling into the depth of it. And he could say, focus on now. Focus on the people that I have now in my life who love me. And the past is the past, which we cannot fix. So beyond that, when 3s go into stress, they go to the unhealthy side of 2. We can get that slide. They focus too much on relationships. 2s are very much into relationships. And when 3s go into stress, they start sliding into the unhealthy part of reactions of 2. They long to be loved as they are, but then they test those who love them. So they poke, and somebody moves back, and they poke, and somebody moves back, and they keep poking until they drive people off, and then they go, of course they can't love me because I am fundamentally flawed. So they want to remind those that they love how loved they are, and they want to hear that. It's not a healthy way to have a relationship. However, when 4s are in a secure place, they go to the healthy side of 1s. And this is where they focus on doing good things in the world. They recognize that the voices in their head are not always telling the truth. Oh my goodness, did you realize that? The voices in your head are not always telling you the truth. They recognize that their reaction to the situation and the actual situation may not be the truth. Remember Ian Cron's story about envy. The story that he was telling himself about his life may have been true, but it was not true at that moment. It was in the past. So, how to become a healthy 4? Again, as we said, you have to focus on the present. You remember to be grateful for what you have. Recognize the envy for what it is, and remember that you do not have to be in that story or in that shame. Practice the art of sympathetic joy. Be happy when someone else has succeeded, whether you've succeeded in that same thing or not. There's a German word that I don't know, but it's the opposite of Schadenfreude. Schadenfreude is when you're happy for somebody else's misfortune. Let's be happy, sympathetic joy. Be happy for other people's successes. One of the things that I really thought was very pointed in the things that I read about being a 4 is be creative every day. That's what you were made for. 4s are the creatives in our world. Doesn't mean that other people can't be, because I'm a poet, but everybody has it. But 4s have to be creative. They need to put that abundance of experience and feelings that they have out into the world. Now, our reading today was about Joseph. And we took the first part of his life, which I like to focus on two things in that makes us identify him as a 4. The one is about his being a dreamer. He had those dreams about the sheaves of wheat bowing down to his sheaf of wheat who was standing up. He also had a dream about the stars bowing down to his, I can't remember whether he was another star or what he was, but the whole point was that other people were recognizing his abundance over them. And he was a dreamer, and he was trying to be unique in those dreams. So the other thing in there is his coat of many colors that his father made for him. And that was another behavior of uniqueness that he displayed in front of all of his brothers, and that the story writers thought was important enough to write down. So, to wrap this up, if you are a 4, remember to stay in the present and be creative. If you are friends or loved ones of a 4, help them to stay in the present. Help them to see that their envy is just an automatic reaction that they don't have to live in, and to tell them that you love them just as they are. Thank you.
For our blessing today, I invite you to go out into the world and be who you are. Be unique, be creative, enjoy life to its fullest, all the emotions you can, just like the Type 4. Go in peace. Amen.